Hyan dragged himself up the stairs to his apartment, his feet aching from the 12-hour shift at the medical center. The clock on his wrist showed 2:47 a.m., and all he wanted was to collapse into bed. Seoul Sector 7 was quiet at this hour, the lower district finally sleeping after another long day. He fumbled with his keys, the hallway lights flickering as they always did on the 4th floor. That's when he heard it. A scratching sound. Soft, desperate, coming from just outside his door. Hyan froze. His heart started beating faster. The scratching came again, weaker this time, followed by a soft thud. Someone had fallen against his door. He rushed forward and pressed the unlock button. The door slid open, and something collapsed inward, falling across his threshold. Hyan jumped back, his medical training kicking in before his fear could take over. It was a woman. Or at least, she had the shape of a woman. But her skin was wrong, all wrong. It shimmered between pale blue and silver, like oil on water. She was impossibly thin, her bones visible under that strange skin. Torn pieces of some kind of suit hung from her body. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. Hyan looked down the hallway. Empty. No one had seen. He made a choice in that moment that would change everything. He grabbed her under the arms and dragged her inside, the door sliding shut behind them. She weighed almost nothing, like she was made of paper and air. Her eyes fluttered open for just a second, revealing pupils that were too large, too dark, like looking into space itself. Then they closed again. Okay, Hyan muttered to himself, his hands shaking. Think, you're a medical technician. You can do this. He laid her on his couch and ran to get his home medical kit. His mind raced through everything he knew, everything he'd learned. This was an alien, that much was clear. Harboring an unregistered alien was illegal. 5 years in prison, minimum. But he couldn't just let her die in his hallway. Hyan checked her pulse. It was there, but strange, faster than human, with an odd double beat. Her skin was cool to the touch, almost cold. He grabbed his scanner and ran it over her body. The readings were all over the place, but one thing was clear: severe malnutrition and dehydration. Water first, he said, talking to himself to stay calm. But what if water is toxic to her species? He looked at her again. Her body structure was similar enough to human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, a head. The biology might be different, but the basics of life were usually the same. All living things needed water. Hyan mixed a weak electrolyte solution, the same kind they gave to severely dehydrated patients. He lifted her head gently and put the cup to her lips. Please, he whispered. Please drink. At first, nothing happened. Then her lips moved, just barely, and she took a small sip. Then another. Her throat worked to swallow. It was working. Over the next hour, Hyan worked carefully. He gave her small amounts of the solution every few minutes. He wrapped her in blankets because her skin stayed so cold. He monitored her vital signs, learning the rhythm of her alien heartbeat. As the first light of dawn started creeping through his windows, she opened her eyes again. This time they stayed open. She looked at him with those deep, dark eyes, and Hyan saw intelligence there. And fear. It's okay, he said softly, holding up his hands. You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you. She stared at him. Her mouth opened and sounds came out, but they weren't words he recognized. Musical, almost, but completely foreign. I don't understand, Hyan said. He pointed to himself. Hyan, my name is Hyan. She watched his gesture. Then, with visible effort, she lifted one thin arm and pointed at herself. The sounds that came from her mouth were impossible for him to repeat, full of tones his voice couldn't make. I'm sorry, he said. I can't say that. Can I call you something? She tilted her head, clearly not understanding. But she didn't seem afraid anymore. Her eyes moved around his small apartment, taking everything in. They lingered on the small plants he kept by the window, the ones his mother had loved before she died, but Hyan spent the rest of the morning caring for her. He called in sick to work, something he never did. Taiyang, his co-worker, called him back immediately. You never call in sick, Taiyang's face said from the video screen. Are you okay? Just tired, Hyan lied, making sure the camera only showed his face and the wall behind him. I need one day. You look stressed. Is something wrong? No, nothing. I'll be fine tomorrow. Taiyang didn't look convinced, but he let it go. Rest well, friend. When Hyan ended the call, he found the alien woman sitting up, watching him. She looked a little better now, a hint of color returning to her strange skin. She pointed at the phone, then at him, making a questioning sound. Friend, Hyan explained, though he knew she couldn't understand. Someone I work with. She kept watching him with those intelligent eyes. Then she did something that surprised him. She placed her hand over her chest and bowed her head slightly. It was clearly a gesture of thanks. You're welcome, Hyan said, returning the bow. Over the next few days, they fell into a careful routine. Hyan learned what she could eat. Simple things worked best: rice, vegetables, fruits. She couldn't handle most proteins. They made her sick. But plants seemed to agree with her biology. He gave her his bedroom and slept on the couch. She protested at first, he could tell, but he insisted. Every morning before work, he left food and water where she could reach them. Every evening, he came home to find her a little stronger, a little more alert. She never made loud sounds. She seemed to understand instinctively that they needed to stay hidden. When neighbors walked past in the hallway, she became very still, barely breathing. On the 5th day, Hyan came home to find her standing by his plants. Her hands hovered over them, not quite touching, and the strangest thing was happening. The plants seemed to lean toward her, their leaves turning in her direction, like she was the sun. She turned when she heard him enter, and for the first time she smiled. It transformed her face completely. She looked young, he realized, maybe younger than him. And there was a sadness in her eyes that he recognized, because he saw it in his own mirror every day. The sadness of someone who had lost everything and found themselves alone in a world that didn't want them. We're going to figure this out, Hyan told her, even though she couldn't understand his words. I promise. You're safe here. She tilted her head, studying his face. Then she reached out very slowly and touched his hand, just for a moment. Her skin was warmer now, not cold like before. The gesture said everything, words COULDN, single quotes T. Thank you for seeing me as a person. Thank you for not turning away. Hyan didn't know it yet, but in that moment, his small apartment stopped being just a place where he slept between shifts. It started becoming something he hadn't had in years. Not since his parents died and his sister moved away to the colonies. It started becoming a home. 3 weeks had passed since that night, and the alien woman was looking much better. Her skin had changed from that terrible gray color to a vibrant mix of blue and silver that shimmered when she moved. She had gained weight, her face filling out to show delicate features that were almost human, but not quite. Her eyes were still those deep pools of darkness, but they sparkled now with curiosity, and Life. Hyan had started thinking of her as Lyra. He didn't know why that name came to him, but when he said it one morning while making breakfast, she had looked up and smiled. So Lyra she became. The communication problem frustrated both of them. Lyra would try to tell him things, her musical voice rising and falling with obvious meaning, but Hyan could only guess at what she wanted to say. He taught her Korean words, pointing at objects and repeating their names. She learned quickly, too quickly for someone just memorizing sounds. There was real understanding happening. One evening, Hyan came home from work to find Lyra examining something small and metallic that she had pulled from behind her ear. She held it delicately between her fingers, and her face showed deep concentration. "What is that?" Hyan asked, moving closer. Lyra looked up at him and tapped her head, then pointed at the device. She opened her mouth and spoke in her own language, then shook her head in frustration. She pointed at the small machine again, and Hyan understood. "A translator? You have a translator?" Her eyes lit up. She nodded eagerly, then her face fell. She shook the device gently and made a sad sound. Broken. Clearly. Hyan held out his hand, and Lyra carefully placed the translator in his palm. It was incredibly small, no bigger than a coin, but he could see the intricate circuits inside through a transparent panel. Some of them were burned out. "I work with medical equipment," Hyan said, more to himself than to her. "The principles might be similar. I could try to fix it." He spent the next 2 days studying the device during his lunch breaks at work, using the medical center's repair tools when no one was watching. Taiyang caught him once, hunched over his workbench with the tiny translator. "What are you working on?" his friend asked. Hyan's heart jumped. "Just a personal project. A broken communicator." "Since when do you tinker with electronics?" "Since I got bored," Hyan lied with a smile. "You know how it is." Taiyang laughed, but there was something in his eyes that made Hyan nervous. His friend was too observant. "You've been acting strange lately. Different. Are you sure everything is okay?" "Everything's fine," Hyan assured him. "Better than fine, actually." It was true. Despite the constant fear of being caught, despite lying to everyone he knew, Hyan was happier than he had been in years. Coming home meant something now. There was someone waiting, someone who smiled when he walked through the door, someone who had started helping around the apartment in small ways. On the 3rd day, Hyan managed to replace the burned circuits with parts from a damaged medical scanner. He wasn't sure it would work, but when he got home that evening, Lyra was waiting eagerly by the door. He handed her the translator. She looked at it, then at him, hope and fear mixing in her expression. Very carefully, she placed it back behind her ear, pressing it against her skin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lyra spoke, and this time, a second voice came from the small device. A mechanical translation that said, "Is it working? Can you understand me?" Hyan felt tears spring to his eyes. Yes, I can understand you." Lyra's hands flew to her mouth, and then she was crying too, tears running down her blue-silver cheeks. "Thank you," she said, and the translator caught every word. Thank you. I have been so alone, unable to speak, unable to explain." They talked for hours that night. Lyra told him everything. She was Aesir, from a planet Hyan had never heard of, in a system too far away to matter to Earth's politics. Her world had been caught in a war between two larger powers, used as a battlefield for conflicts that had nothing to do with her people. Her family had scattered. Her mother and younger brother were dead. She had seen it happen. Her father and sister had fled in different directions. She didn't know if they had survived. Lyra had escaped on a refugee transport, packed in with hundreds of other displaced beings from a dozen different worlds. But the transport had been attacked by raiders who wanted to sell them as labor. In the chaos, Lyra had found an escape pod and launched herself into space with no idea where she would land. "I crashed in the industrial sector," she explained, her voice soft through the translator. "I was hurt and so hungry. I had been hiding for days, eating scraps, drinking rainwater. I was dying, I think. Then I found your door, and I couldn't walk anymore." "I'm glad you did," Hyan said quietly. Find my door, I mean. Why did you help me? Lyra asked. You could have called the authorities. You could have turned me away. I'm illegal here. Hyan thought about it. My parents died when I was young, he finally said. My sister and I were alone. People helped us when they didn't have to. I remember what it felt like to be scared and hungry. I couldn't see you suffering and do nothing. Lyra reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were longer than human fingers, with an extra joint, but her grip was warm and gentle. You saved my life. In my culture, that creates a bond. You are family now, whether you choose to be or not. I choose to be, Hyan said, surprised by how much he meant it. They fell into easier patterns after that. Lyra told him she had been a botanist before the war, studying plant biology and cultivation. She showed him what she could do with his small collection of plants. When she touched them, they responded. They grew faster, healthier, their leaves turning toward her like she was water and sunlight combined. It's a gift some Aesir have, she explained. A biological connection to plant life. I can feel what they need, help them grow. Hyan watched in amazement as she coaxed new growth from a plant that had been dying for months. This is incredible. You could help so many people with this ability. If I wasn't illegal, Lyra said with a sad smile. If I wasn't hiding. The reality of their situation was never far from their minds. Every day brought new risks. Mina, the elderly woman who lived next door, had started giving Hyan strange looks in the hallway. She had heard voices from his apartment, seen him buying twice as much food at the market. One evening, as Hyan was coming home, Mina stopped him at the stairs. Hyan, she said, her old eyes sharp. I've been hearing things. A woman's voice from your apartment. Hyan's throat went dry. I have a friend visiting. For 3 weeks? Mina raised an eyebrow. And you never mentioned her before? Never introduced her to the neighbors? She's shy. And sick. She doesn't go out much. Mina studied his face for a long moment. I see. Well, if your friend needs anything, you let me know. I may be old, but I remember what it's like to need help and be too afraid to ask. She walked away before Hyan could respond, leaving him standing in the stairwell, his heart pounding. Did she know? Or was she just being kind? When he told Lyra about the conversation, she looked worried. Maybe I should leave. I'm putting you in danger. No, Hyan said firmly. We'll figure it out, together. That night, Lyra taught Hyan about Aesir culture, about their concept of chosen family bonds that went deeper than blood. She showed him a ritual where they shared a meal in silence, each thinking about what they were grateful for. They sat across from each other at Hyan's small table, eating rice and vegetables, and the silence wasn't empty. It was full of understanding and growing trust. When they finished, Lyra smiled at him. Saram, she said in Korean, one of the first words she had learned. Person, human, but for me, it means more now. It means you, my person, my family. Hyan felt something warm bloom in his chest, something he hadn't felt since his sister moved away. The feeling of not being alone anymore. Family, he agreed, and meant it with everything he had. 2 months had passed, and Lyra was growing restless. Hyan could see it in the way she paced the small apartment when she thought he wasn't watching, the way she stood at the window staring out at the city lights below. She never complained, but he understood. She had been trapped inside for so long, breathing recycled air, seeing the same 4 walls every day. I want to help, she told him one evening as he prepared dinner. I want to contribute, not just hide and take from you. Hyan looked at her. She had changed so much from the dying creature who had collapsed at his door. Her skin glowed with health now, shifting between blues and silvers, depending on her mood. She had learned to wear human clothes, though she preferred loose, flowing fabrics. Her Korean had improved dramatically, mixing with the translator to let her express complex thoughts. "You're not taking from me," he said. "You're my family." "Family helps each other," Lyra insisted. "You work so hard, and I do nothing." That's when Hyan had an idea. He showed her the small collection of medical herbs he had been trying and failing to grow. At work, we're always running out of certain medicinal plants. They're expensive to buy and hard to grow. But you could grow them. Lyra's eyes lit up. She moved to the plants immediately, her hands hovering over them. "Yes," she breathed. "These are struggling. The soil is wrong, the light is wrong, but I can help them. I can make them strong." They started that night. Lyra worked with the plants, while Hyan researched which herbs would be most valuable. Within days, the dying plants were thriving, growing faster than should be possible. Within 2 weeks, they had produced more usable medicine than Hyan's contacts at the medical center had seen in months, but it gave them both purpose. Hyan would carefully package the herbs and slip them into the medical supply system, claiming he had found a new supplier. The quality was so high that no one questioned it. The money wasn't important, but seeing Lyra's pride in her work, seeing her smile when another plant flourished under her care, that was everything. But Lyra still wanted to see the outside world. "Please," she begged one night. "Just once. Just to see the sky. Real sky, not through a window." Hyan knew it was dangerous, but he also knew she couldn't live in a cage forever. "Okay," he agreed, "but we have to be careful. Very careful." They planned it for a week. Hyan bought her a medical mask, the kind people wore during the old pandemics that had swept Earth decades ago. Some people still wore them, so it wouldn't look too strange. He found a long coat with a hood and gloves to cover her distinctive hands. Late one night, when Sector 7 was as quiet as it ever got, they left the apartment. Lyra gripped Hyan's arm tightly, her whole body trembling with excitement and fear. Every sound made her jump. Every person they passed made her press closer to him. "It's okay," Hyan whispered. "Just stay calm. We're just 2 people going for a walk." He took her to the rooftop garden, a place few people visited at night. It was 20 floors up, accessible only by an old stairwell that most residents avoided. When they pushed through the door to the roof, Lyra gasped that the city stretched out below them, a sea of lights in every direction. But above was the sky. Stars fought through the light pollution, scattered across the darkness like diamonds. Earth's moon hung heavy and bright, so much larger than the moons of her homeworld. Lyra pulled down her mask and breathed deeply. "I can smell the plants," she said, moving toward the small garden some residents maintained. "And the city. And the air. It's so different from inside." Hyan watched her touch the leaves of tomato plants, herbs, flowers. Under her fingers, they seemed to wake up, to reach for her. She was crying. He realized, tears streaming down her face. "Are you okay?" he asked, concerned. "I thought I would never feel this again," she said. "Wind on my face. Real earth under my feet. The sky above me." She turned in a circle, arms spread wide, looking up at the stars. "There," she pointed. "That constellation. My home is near there. So far away, I'll never see it again." Hyan stood beside her, following her gaze. "Tell me about it." "Your home." So she did. Lyra told him about purple skies and double sunsets, about forests where the trees sang in the wind, about cities built into living mountains that grew and changed with the seasons. She told him about her mother teaching her to listen to plants, about her sister who wanted to be a pilot, about her brother who was too young to understand why they had to run. "I miss them so much," she whispered. I don't even know if they're alive. Maybe someday we can find out, Hyan said. When it's safe. When you're legal. We'll search for them. Lyra looked at him, moonlight reflecting in her dark eyes. You really mean that? I really do. They stayed on the roof for an hour, Lyra drinking in the outside world like someone dying of thirst. When they finally returned to the apartment, she was different. Lighter somehow, like hope had taken root inside her. But the outside world wasn't done with them yet. The next day at work, Taiyang pulled Hyan aside. His friend's face was serious, worried. I need to tell you something, Taiyang said quietly. There's been talk. The authorities are looking for an escaped alien from a crash site a few months ago. They're checking apartments in Sector 7. Hyan's blood turned to ice. What kind of alien? They won't say exactly. Just that it's dangerous, that people should report anything unusual. Taiyang looked directly at him. Hyan, is there something you need to tell me? No, Hyan lead. Nothing. Because if you were in trouble, if you needed help, you know I would help you, right? We're friends. I know. Thank you. But everything is fine. Taiyang didn't look convinced, but he nodded. Okay, just be careful. When Hyan got home, he found Mina waiting in the hallway. The old woman's face was kind but firm. I need to talk to you, she said. Inside. Hyan's heart pounded as he led her into the apartment. Lyra was in the bedroom, but surely Mina would see some sign of her. I know you have someone staying with you, Mina said without preamble. Someone who can't be seen. Someone who isn't human. Hyan opened his mouth to deny it, but Mina held up her hand. Don't lie to me, boy. I've lived too long to be fooled. I've heard her voice. I've seen how you buy food. And I've noticed the plants on the roof are growing better than they have in years. She smiled. I go up there too, you know. Old people don't sleep much. Please, Hyan said desperately. Please don't report her. She's not dangerous. She's just scared and alone. Report her? Mina looked offended. Child, I was a refugee once too. A long time ago, when I was young, during the water wars. I know what it's like to hide, to be afraid. I'm not here to turn you in. I'm here to help. Lyra emerged from the bedroom then, having heard everything through the translator. She pulled down her mask, showing her alien face. Mina studied her for a long moment, then smiled. You're very pretty, dear. And those plants you've been growing are wonderful. My arthritis tea has never worked better. Lyra blinked in surprise. You knew it was me? Who else? Hyan can barely keep a cactus alive. Mina laughed. Listen, there are more of us than you think. People who remember what it was like to need help. People who know the system is broken. If you need anything, you come to me. And I'll spread the word to others who can be trusted. After Mina left, Hyan and Lyra sat in stunned silence. Humans surprised me, Lyra finally said. When I crashed here, I thought everyone would be like the raiders. Taking, hurting, using. But you're not. You see someone in need, and you help. Not all humans, Hyan admitted, but enough of us. Good people exist everywhere, I think. You just have to find them. I found you, Lyra said softly. She reached out and took his hand. S'aram. My person. My family. My family, Hyan agreed. That night, the news showed footage of a political rally. A man shouted into cameras about the alien threat, about keeping Earth pure, about protecting human jobs and human lives from foreign influence. The crowd cheered. Hyan turned off the screen. Lyra looked shaken. It's going to get worse, isn't it? She asked. Maybe, but it's also going to get better. Because people like Mina exist. People like Taiyang, who would help if he knew the truth. We're not alone in this. Lyra moved to the window, looking out at the city. I used to have a whole world. Now I have one apartment. But somehow it feels bigger than my whole planet ever did. Because it's full of love. Hyan stood beside her. Outside, the city pulsed with life. Millions of people living their own stories, fighting their own battles. And somewhere in that vast sea of humanity, there were others like them. Others who chose kindness over fear, love over hate, thought they would find those people. And together, they would build something stronger than any wall, any law, any fear. They would build a home god. It happened on a quiet evening 3 months after Lyra had arrived. They were cooking dinner together, moving around the small kitchen with the ease of long practice. Lyra was chopping vegetables while Hyan prepared rice. And they were talking about nothing important, just the comfortable conversation of people who knew each other well. Lyra reached for the pepper and accidentally knocked over a glass. Hyan caught it before it could shatter, and they both laughed. "Thank you, Orabayoni," Lyra said without thinking. Then she froze. Her eyes went wide. The word had slipped out so naturally, so easily, but it meant older brother. It was a word of family, of belonging, of deep affection. Hyan stood very still, the glass in his hand. "What did you say?" Lyra's skin shifted to a darker blue, the Aesir equivalent of a blush. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to presume. I know I'm not really your sister. It felt right, and I wasn't thinking, and—" "Lyra," Hyan interrupted gently. He set down the glass and took her hands. "Say it again." She looked up at him, uncertain. "Orabayoni?" Hyan smiled, and there were tears in his eyes. "I had a sister, Yuna. She's alive, working in the colonies, but she's so far away. I haven't seen her in 2 years. And before you came, this apartment was so empty, so quiet, like a tomb." He squeezed her hands. "You can call me Orabayoni. You are my sister. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. And that's just as real." Lyra's tears fell freely now. She threw her arms around him, and Hyan held her close. They stood like that in the kitchen, two beings from different worlds, bound together by something stronger than biology. "Family," Lyra whispered. "Family," Hyan agreed. The moment was broken by Hyan's phone ringing. He pulled away to answer it, and his face went pale when he saw the caller. "It's Yuna," he said. "My sister." Lyra stepped back immediately, giving him space. Hyan accepted the call, and his sister's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but happy, her hair shorter than he remembered. "Hyan!" "I'm sorry I haven't called in so long. Work has been crazy. But I have news. I'm coming home to visit." Hyan's mouth went dry. "What? When?" "Next week. I managed to get leave time, and I miss you so much. I want to see the apartment, meet your friends, spend real time together. Isn't it wonderful?" "Yes," Hyan managed. "Wonderful." After the call ended, he and Lyra looked at each other in panic. "What do we do?" Lyra asked. "I can't meet her. She'll know what I am immediately. And you can't hide me for a whole visit." "Maybe I should tell her," Hyan said slowly. "She's my sister. She deserves to know the truth. But what if she reports me? What if she thinks you're in danger? Yuna wouldn't do that. She's kind. She's always been kind." Hyan paced the small apartment. "But this is a lot to ask. To make her complicit in hiding you." They spent the next week in anxious preparation. Hyan cleaned the apartment obsessively, trying to hide any obvious sign of Lyra's presence, while knowing it was impossible. Lyra practiced hiding in the bedroom, staying silent for hours, but they both knew it wouldn't work. Not for days. Finally, the night before Yuna's arrival, Hyan made his decision. "I'm going to tell her. Right away." before she even comes to the apartment. I'll meet her at the transport station and explain everything. Are you sure? Lyra asked, fear clear in her voice. No, but she's my sister, and you're my sister. My family should know each other. The next day, Hyan waited at the station with his stomach in knots. When Yuna emerged from the transport, she looked exactly the same and completely different. Older, somehow. More confident. She ran to him and hugged him tight. I missed you so much, she said into his shoulder. I missed you too. But Yuna, I need to tell you something before we go home. Something important. They sat in a quiet corner of the station, and Hyan told her everything. About finding Lyra, about hiding her, about the past 3 months. Yuna's face went through a dozen emotions: shock, fear, anger, confusion. You could go to prison, she said when he finished. Do you understand that? 5 years minimum for harboring an illegal alien. I know, but I couldn't let her die. And now she's family. I can't abandon her. Yuna was quiet for a long time. I want to meet her. Before I decide anything, I want to meet this person who's made you risk everything. They walked to the apartment in silence. When they entered, Lyra was waiting nervously by the window. She had dressed carefully in simple human clothes, her mask and gloves nearby in case she needed to hide quickly. Yuna stopped in the doorway, staring. Lyra stood very still, letting herself be examined. The silence stretched out. Then Yuna said, You've been taking care of my brother. Lyra nodded. And he has been taking care of me. He looks better than he has in years. Happier, less alone. Yuna moved closer, studying Lyra's alien features with open curiosity. Show me what you can do. With the plants. Hyan told me, but I want to see. Lyra glanced at Hyan, who nodded encouragement. She moved to the collection of medicinal herbs, now thriving in their pots. She placed her hands near them, not quite touching, and they responded. Growing, reaching, turning toward her like she was their son. Yuna gasped. That's incredible. Do you know how valuable this ability is? How many people you could help? If I wasn't illegal, Lyra said quietly. If I wasn't in hiding. Then we make you legal, Yuna said firmly. She turned to Hyan. I work in colonial administration. I know the refugee laws, the loopholes, the programs that exist. There's a humanitarian sponsorship program. If Hyan sponsors you as a family guardian, if we can prove you have unique skills that benefit society, we might be able to get you legal residency. Hope flared in Lyra's eyes. Really? It's risky. And expensive. And if it fails, Hyan could face charges for the initial harboring. But it's a chance. Yuna looked between them. Are you willing to try? Yes, they said together. That night, the 3 of them sat down to dinner. Yuna had brought food from the colonies, exotic fruits that Lyra had never tasted. Lyra prepared traditional Aesir dishes using earth vegetables, creating something entirely new. Hyan made his mother's recipe for soup, the one she used to make for family gatherings. They ate together, talking and laughing, sharing stories of their different worlds. Yuna told them about life in the colonies, the strange and wonderful aliens she worked with every day. Lyra described her homeworld, the beauty that had been destroyed by war. Hyan talked about their parents, keeping their memory alive for both of his sisters, because that's what Lyra was now. His sister. After dinner, Lyra showed them an Aesir ritual. She took seeds from 3 different plants and wove them together with living vines, creating a small sculpture. She explained that in her culture, this represented chosen family bonds. Each seed is a person, she said. Different plants, different species, but growing together, supporting each other, becoming something new and beautiful. They planted it together on the rooftop garden, the three of them kneeling in the dirt under the stars. Yuna placed her hand over Hyon's, and Lyra placed hers over both. The vines seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight, already beginning to intertwine. "Family," Yuna said softly. "Family." Hyan and Lyra echoed over the next few days. Yuna worked tirelessly on the sponsorship application. She called in favors from colleagues, gathered documentation, prepared legal arguments. Hyan and Lyra gave her everything she needed. Proof of Lyra's abilities. Testimonials from Mina about how the medicinal plants had helped the community. Evidence of Hyan's stable income and good character. But there were complications. News reports showed the xenophobic movement growing stronger. More raids on alien communities. More deportations. More fear. Taiyang called Hyan one evening, his voice urgent. "The enforcement teams are stepping up checks in Sector 7. Someone reported seeing an alien in the area. Hyan, if you know anything, if you're involved in something, you need to be careful." "I will be," Hyan promised. "Thank you for warning me." After he hung up, Lyra looked at him with frightened eyes. "Maybe I should just turn myself in. Save you from this risk." "Absolutely not," Hyan said firmly. Yuna nodded in agreement. "We're family," Yuna told Lyra. "And family doesn't abandon each other when things get hard. We fight together." That night, the three of them sat around Hyan's small table and made a plan. If the application was denied, if enforcement came before approval, Yuna would help Lyra escape to the colonies. It wasn't ideal, but it was survival. But they all hoped it wouldn't come to that. "I never thought I would have this again," Lyra said quietly. "A family. People who cared if I lived or died. Hyan gave me life when he brought me inside. But you both have given me something more. A reason to live." Hyan took her hand. Yuna took the other. They sat there in silence, bound together by choice and love and hope. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere out there, enforcement teams were searching. Politicians were preaching hate. Fear was spreading like a disease. But in this small apartment, in this moment, there was only love. And love, they all knew, was stronger than any fear. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Yuna had submitted the sponsorship application 2 weeks earlier, and they had heard nothing. Every day that passed felt like a year. Every knock on the door made them jump. Every siren in the street made Lyra hide. Hyan was at work when his phone buzzed. A message from Yuna. Application approved. Official notification coming today. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped the phone. Taiyang noticed immediately. "Good news?" His friend asked. "The best news," Hyan said, tears streaming down his face. "Everything is going to be okay." But fate had other plans. That same afternoon, an enforcement team received an anonymous tip about an unregistered alien in Sector 7. Apartment 403, Hyan's apartment. Lyra was alone when she heard boots in the hallway. Heavy footsteps, multiple people, stopping outside the door. Her heart hammered in her chest. She grabbed her communication device to call Hyan, but before she could, someone started banging on the door. Enforcement. "Open up." Lyra stood frozen. This was it. After everything, after all their planning, it was ending. She could run to the bedroom, try to hide, but they would search. They would find her. The banging came again, harder. "We have reports of an illegal alien in this residence. Open the door, or we will force entry." Downstairs, Mina heard the commotion. She immediately hit the emergency alert on her phone, the one the small network of sympathetic neighbors had set up. Within minutes, people started gathering in the hallway, blocking the stairs, causing confusion. Taeyang got the alert at the same time as Hyan. He looked at his friend's pale face, and suddenly everything made sense. The strange behavior, the secretiveness, a happiness mixed with fear. He grabbed Hyun's arm. "Go, I'll cover for you." "Go now." Hyun ran. He had never run so fast in his life. Through the streets, dodging traffic, his lungs burning. He had to get there. He had to protect her dot by the time he reached the building. A crowd had formed. Neighbors stood in the hallway, arguing with enforcement officers about proper procedure, demanding to see warrants, asking questions. Buying time got Hyun pushed through and found the lead officer, a stern-looking woman named Ji-won, standing outside his door. "I'm the resident," he gasped. "What's the problem?" "We have reports of an illegal alien," Ji-won said. "We need to search the apartment. Do you have a warrant?" "We have probable cause based on a reliable tip." Hyun's mind raced. The application was approved. Yuna had said so, but the official notification hadn't arrived yet. If they took Lyra now, it might not matter. She could be deported before the paperwork processed. "Wait," he said. "Please, just wait. I have documentation coming." "Legal documentation." "Sir, step aside, or you will be arrested for obstruction." Hyun didn't move. He stood in front of his door, arms spread. "No, you can arrest me, but you're not going in there without proper authorization." The crowd murmured approval. More neighbors arrived, drawn by the commotion. Mina pushed to the front. "This boy is a good person," she announced loudly. "He helps everyone in this building. If he says he has legal documentation, then we should wait for it." "This is not a democracy," Ji-won said, but she looked uncomfortable. The crowd was growing, and her team was small. Inside the apartment, Lyra heard everything. She understood what Hyun was doing. Risking arrest, maybe prison, for her. She couldn't let that happen. She opened the door. The crowd went silent. Lyra stood there in her human clothes, but she had removed her mask and gloves. Her blue-silver skin shimmered in the hallway light. Her dark, alien eyes looked directly at Ji-won. "I am Lyra," she said clearly, her translator converting each word. "I am Azir. I have been living here for 5 months. This man, Hyun, saved my life. He is my family." Ji-won stared. So did her team. So did the crowd. No one had expected this direct honesty. "You understand I have to take you in," Ji-won said, but her voice was softer than before. "I understand. But please, look at this first." Lyra held out her communication device, showing the message from Yuna about the approved sponsorship. "My legal status application was approved today. I'm not illegal. Not anymore." Ji-won examined the message. "This isn't official notification. Until the paperwork processes through the system, technically you're still—" "Please," Hyun interrupted. His voice broke. "Please. She's my sister. She's family. Don't take her away." Ji-won looked at him. Really looked. She saw the desperation in his eyes, the tears on his face. She looked at Lyra, standing tall and scared, but not running. She looked at the crowd of neighbors, all of them standing together, protecting their own. "I have a daughter," Ji-won said quietly. "She's sick. Very sick. The medicines she needs are expensive and hard to get." She looked at the thriving plants visible through the apartment door. "I've heard rumors about medicinal herbs being supplied to the medical centers. Better quality than anything commercial. That wouldn't happen to be your work, would it?" Lyra nodded slowly. "I can help plants grow. It's a gift of my people. I've been growing medicine to help others." "My daughter needs help. Then I will help her," Lyra said immediately. "Whatever she needs, whatever plants might ease her suffering, I will grow them. Please, just let me stay." The hallway was absolutely silent. Ji-won stood there, the weight of rules and regulations on one side, the weight of compassion and desperate hope on the other. She looked at her team, at the crowd, at Hyan and Lyra standing together. The official notification could take days to process, she said finally. In my professional judgment, since the application has been approved, it would be inappropriate to arrest someone whose legal status is pending. We will note this apartment as pending review and return when the documentation is complete. The crowd erupted in cheers. Hyan grabbed Lyra and held her tight, both of them shaking with relief. Mina wiped tears from her wrinkled face. The other neighbors clapped and shouted their approval. Ji-won held up her hand for silence. However, you need to get that official documentation immediately. I'm giving you 3 days. If I don't see legal proof by then, I will have to take action. Understood? Understood, Hyan said. Thank you. Thank you so much. As the enforcement team left, Ji-won paused. My daughter's name is Hana. She has the wasting disease. If you really can help her ... I can, Lyra promised. I will. Bring her to me, and I will do everything in my power to help. After everyone left, Hyan and Lyra collapsed on the couch. They sat there in stunned silence for a long time. That was too close, Hyan finally said. But we made it. We survived. The official documentation arrived the next day. Lyra was now legally registered as a refugee with special skills, sponsored by Hyan as her family guardian. She had rights now. Protection. A legal identity. True to her word, Lyra helped Ji-won's daughter. She grew rare herbs that eased the child's symptoms, gave her strength, helped her body fight the disease. Ji-won spread the word among other enforcement officers, and the raids in Sector 7 quietly stopped. The medicinal garden on the roof became a community project. Lyra taught others how to care for the plants, though they could never make them grow like she could. The herbs helped dozens of people in the building, then hundreds throughout the sector. News coverage followed. A human interest story about an alien refugee using her gifts to help her adopted community. It went viral. Other humans started speaking up, sharing their own stories of alien friends, alien neighbors, alien family members who had enriched their lives. The xenophobic movement didn't disappear, but it weakened. Hard to maintain fear when people could see the good that came from acceptance. 6 months later, Yuna helped Lyra make contact with refugee networks in the colonies. They searched for her family. It took weeks of sending messages, checking databases, following leads. Then, one day, a message came back. Lyra's older sister, Kayla, was alive. Working as a mechanic in a colony 3 systems away, Lyra cried when she heard. Hyan held her while she shook with sobs of joy and relief. Yuna immediately started making arrangements for a visit. The day Lyra left for the spaceport, the entire building came to see her off. Mina hugged her tight. Ji-won brought little Hana, now healthy and strong, to say goodbye. Taeyang, who had become a regular visitor once the truth was out, pressed a gift into her hands. Come back to us, he said. This is your home too. I will, Lyra promised. This is my family. At the spaceport, Hyan and Yuna walked her to the departure gate. Lyra turned to face them, tears streaming down her blue-silver face. I came to your door dying, she said, alone and scared and ready to give up. You gave me life. You gave me hope. You gave me family. You gave us the same, Hyan said. My apartment was empty before you. My life was empty. You filled it with purpose and love. Lyra placed her hand over her heart, the Aesir gesture of eternal family bond. Hyan and Yuna mirrored it. I'll be back in 2 weeks, Lyra said. After I see my sister. After I tell her about all of you. About the humans who saved me and loved me and became my family. We'll be waiting, Yuna promised. Lyra boarded the transport. As it lifted into the sky, Hyan watched until it disappeared among the stars. Yuna put her arm around him. "You did a good thing," she said. "Saving her. Choosing love over fear." "She saved me too," Hyan replied. "I just didn't know I needed saving until she showed up at my door." They walked back through the city together, back to Sector 7, back to the apartment that had become so much more than just a place to sleep. The rooftop garden was thriving, the community was strong, and in 2 weeks, Lyra would come home, because home was never about buildings or planets or borders. Home was never about laws or species or differences. Home was about the people who chose to love you. The people who saw you at your worst and stayed anyway. The people who became family not through blood, but through choice. Hyan climbed the stairs to his apartment and opened the door. Inside, everything was the same. His small kitchen, his simple furniture, his collection of plants by the window. But it felt completely different. It felt full. Full of memories and laughter and love. Full of the promise of tomorrow, when Lyra would return with stories of her sister. Full of hope for a future where humans and aliens lived together. Not in tolerance, but in genuine family. He watered Lyra's plants, the ones she had left in his care. They reached toward him, not like they did with her, but with recognition. With trust. And Hyan smiled, because he understood now what his mother had tried to teach him all those years ago, before she died. That love wasn't something you found. It was something you built. One choice at a time. One act of kindness at a time. One person at a time. He had built a family from nothing. From a desperate knock at his door in the middle of the night. From saying yes when it would have been easier to say no. From choosing love over fear, again and again, until it became second nature. And in return, that love had saved him too. Outside, the city hummed with life. Millions of stories, millions of struggles, millions of people just trying to survive. But here, in this small apartment in Sector 7, there was something more than survival. There was home. There was family. There was love. And that, Hyan knew, was everything that mattered.